Welcome to All Things Chiropractic.
Welcome to another episode of All Things Chiropractic. I'm Paul Andrews.
And I'm Dr. Mark Davini. Welcome all.
I think this is going to be a very enlightening episode. The National Board of Chiropractic Examiners, every, 5 years, does a practice analysis of the chiropractic profession. A lot of federation-like organizations do this. Certainly the Massage Federation does this. And we have found, I think, the information somewhat not shocking. Some of it kind of is. Enlightening, all of it for sure.
Well, and always coming from the position that knowledge is power. And if you know where your practice is, in a sense, compared to the national averages or the national statistics, so to speak, it gives you a good sense of where you are and where you might want to go. I think this is critical information for goal setting. It's important to know exactly what is going on out there in the profession and how do you stand up or compare to what's going on outside. So knowledge is power here for sure.
What I like about it, it's not the insurance companies doing a practice or professional analysis. It's the profession doing it for themselves.
There you go.
And we're going to break down some of this very interesting data for sure. First, though, why don't Dr. Davini, since you're the chiropractor in the room, just give us a little overview of this chiropractic profession analysis?
Well, it's a fairly lengthy document and a lot of heavy reading, but again, a lot of nice graphics and charts to bring your mind to where you need to go. But they give you an overview. They talk about how they created this. They talk about the demographics of those that participated in the study, and so that you get a good sense that it is a nice cross section of practitioners out there. It's not this we'll say limited viewpoint of chiropractic. They talk about the different characteristics of the practice settings and patient characteristics, all, I think, critical information, especially when you're doing your practice building or practice planning. They talk about the different types of treatments that are out there and how practices are implementing different services. Very important today, especially in the world of covered and non-covered services. And they talk about conditions. What is it that we actually treat as a profession? It's interesting. It's what one might expect, but then there are a lot of other things out there that certain chiropractic groups, in a sense, have sort of segmented them out too. So that's interesting to know. Scientific, ethical, and practical practices, which describe the science of chiropractic and evidence-based practice, how it's mostly an integration of not just what you know, but what you experience and what you gain as you go along in practice. They talk all about different things, which we'll kind of break down in a little bit, but strongly recommend that you download this study and look it over, especially if you're sitting down and doing your strategic planning for the next year. And you could say, okay, this is a lot with what we have to know in order to have a good guide on where we should be going.
You know what I'll do is I'll put a link to this study on our allthingschiropractic.com website so you guys can find it much easier.
Perfect. There you go, right there.
So the methodology was this functional job analysis approach. And what I liked also was that they included the stakeholders, organizations in the profession, which really reach out to the individual practitioner as well. So
not all jobs functional.
Well, okay, there's a lot of places I could go with that, but I am going to just...
It's kind of like that commercial, all cupcakes, just mini cakes.
Beep, beep, I'm backing away from the comment. All right, so I've earmarked a lot of spots in here, but I want to make one overarching comment about this study. Did you notice there was one, I thought, glaring thing missing from this study?
Now I'm intrigued.
Well, maybe it's because of where we're coming from. The mention of chiropractic assistance was nowhere in this study that I could find. Now, I understand it's the profession, right? It's a practice analysis of chiropractic. Well, wouldn't the practice of chiropractic include assistance, clinical or otherwise?
Oh, especially when it comes to impacting some of the statistics they talk about, like, income and practice volume and things like that. Absolutely. Okay, so that's a reason to write NBCE. And 5 years from now, they should include a section on chiropractic.
Or at least comment
assisting.
why they did it. Maybe that just created more of a... it's a very good study, so I'm not being critical other than to say that I thought that was a very large omission, maybe on purpose.
Yeah.
Because of the scope of this data.
But like you said, it should at least be accounted for.
Yeah. But anyway, I digress from that. So one thing I thought, so if we dig into it a little bit, there was a table in here about where chiropractic exists in the world.
I was shocked at some of the places, but I mean, it's in the world.
From the Midwest of America, we branch out to, decades and decades later.
Yeah, it's in Africa, Southeast Asia, Middle East, Eastern Mediterranean, Europe, the Americas, Western Pacific.
Yeah,
that's a lot of the world right there.
Well, and you know what's funny? Not all these places license chiropractors either. So you're identifying yourself as a chiropractor.
I think we need to get a little bit more to China and Russia. What do you think?
Good luck.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they might actually be there, but they couldn't reach them for the data analysis.
I don't know if Russia will take it. They wouldn't let us put it in there. Putting in there.
Oh my! Wow. I am so sorry out there, everybody. I'm so sorry for that. We're going to move on from that one. Yeah, but I thought that was interesting. And then I was a little surprised at the number of chiropractic schools that are around.
Yeah, there's 19 CCE accredited chiropractic colleges. Coming from Palmer, I always believed that there was one.
Yeah. That's why you didn't know CAs weren't in this study either.
Yeah. You mean there's more than Palmer?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Wow. Sorry, he alienated you out there, docs, that didn't go to Palmer. But
I get teased on that a lot from some of the attorneys I work with. They'll say, oh, well, you might have to recognize that somebody else went to a different school. I said, okay, I will.
Yeah. Hello. So, but I thought it was interesting that there were so many of them. Was anyone on this list a surprise to you, even inside America?
I think the one in Kentucky wasn't there one in Kentucky?
Yeah, Campbellsville University.
Never heard of it. Never heard of it in Kentucky.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
And working with a lot of hundreds and hundreds of chiropractors across the country, it's interesting. I'm going to start asking where they went to school, because it really comes down to the handful of the major ones, in a sense, if you want to put it that way. And I've not heard of some of these schools.
Well, also, they have Life College West in California, but we did learn when we were out there that they have a Nebraska branch.
A Nebraska branch now. Yeah, maybe this was done before that was open, so maybe there's 20 now, right?
Yeah, as far as... But I thought it was interesting anyway. I don't know if anyone cares, but...
Well, we did talk with somebody, a good friend of both of ours, where we were discussing this concept of opening up chiropractic schools, and they said, in universities that have medical programs, medical schools and things like that, it's a simple thing to open up a chiropractic school, because they already have the infrastructure to do everything else. They already have the anatomy teachers and the physiology teachers and the dissection labs and all of that. So the cost of adding a chiropractic program is minimal to them. So a lot of these schools might be following that model.
Yeah. It's all about market share,
That's
So,
it.
What's interesting is when it got to the section of description of chiropractic care, it almost read like a documentation manual in a sense.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I'm checking off, I'm not sure they do a lot of that or a lot of this.
Yeah. Surprisingly, most chiropractors follow spine care and health care. That's what they treat as a category, spine care and health care. And that's 94%, where 36%, it goes down to a low of 36% treat, we'll say just pediatrics.
I'm really talking if you look at how they describe chiropractic care, and they're describing it from the new patient and then basically the procedures or what would be standard of care.
Oh, okay.
Within that, when they talk about that the DC begins care with a new patient in a manner similar to other healthcare providers. Patients complete documentation, all their ADLs, and then it goes into, the DC will take a comprehensive history, thorough exam. It goes right through the whole thing. And I'm like, wow, this kind of reads like a documentation standard of practice document.
And that's a huge difference too, because we are different now. We do have greater responsibility. We are more educated than when I went to school. I mean, there's a statistic in there that said 65% of chiropractors now have bachelors. That wasn't the case when I went to school. I have my bachelor's, and I was one of the few in the class. It was a very small percentage of my class had bachelor's degrees because they weren't required as a prerequisite. They're still not technically required, but most 65% now have bachelor's. So with that comes this higher level of education, and with that comes the understanding for things like what you just said.
Well, and I know oftentimes that figure, what happens my buddy did it. They go to 2 years of undergrad, then they start chiropractic school, and then they find a college that will consolidate their credits and just give them a bachelor's.
And give them a bachelor's, yeah.
A college they never actually even went to.
Literally. Okay, you're not going to touch that. I know. It's like
it happens.
Medical doctors do the same thing. They go through their medical school and at the same time get a PhD in research or whatever.
Right.
It's kind of concurrent with the curriculum. So it's not an uncommon practice for sure.
It was interesting too, because we talked about this in other episodes about the variety of care approaches in chiropractic, right? You put 100 chiropractors in a room, you get 100 different types of care almost.
Right.
And the study really traces it back to scope of practice and how each state battled to get licensure and how that in itself created variances in practice. I thought that was
and it goes, a lot of it can be you can relate a lot of it to the Federation of Chiropractic Licensing Boards, where they're trying to create some standardization of certain criteria for chiropractors, so that you're not going from one state to the next and, over here I can do this, but over here I can't do that. Over here I need to take 12 parts of a state board, and over here I just have to pass a 20-question jurisprudence test, like in Massachusetts. So yeah, it is in the process, and it's something that we've talked about in other podcasts, where we have to start making things more standardized here in our profession, so that when we defend it and when we present it, what we're presenting is what is actually out there.
Exactly. So as I progressed through this study, I thought it wasn't surprising but interesting about the settings in which the care is rendered, and that tons and tons of it's solo practitioners still.
Tons. But if you look at the graph, the projections over the next 10 years, it dramatically decreases and they almost converge. So it's coming to the point now where the solo practitioner is becoming extinct. And that follows a lot with what we're seeing because of the cost of being in practice, low reimbursement rates. The business side of things has to do more in order to be profitable.
What I find interesting in that chart is that from 2014 to 2024, it's a 10-year stretch, sole proprietor practice dropped about 25%.
Yeah.
That's what's shocking to me.
Yeah.
Because that really still is the place where chiropractors end up mostly. And I think a lot of it is because there's not a huge amount of opportunities elsewhere. Yes, there's group practices, there's franchises, but you don't have all these other areas that, like my wife who's an OT. She can work in home, she can work in school, she can work in hospitals, she can work in nursing homes. I mean, the list goes on, and OTs almost never go out on their own. It's actually completely opposite chiropractic.
Right.
So, and also what I thought, because we've talked about generations, right, in other episodes. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics projects a 10% increase in the employment of chiropractors by 2033, so a 10% rise in opportunities. Yet, that survey also shows that approximately 60% of the current practitioners will be eligible for or will be retired by 2035.
Right.
Talk about a huge gap.
Right. And that actually will, in a few minutes, just even start talking about income and things like that. That's where it all comes from. All of a sudden, it's become a good job, meaning people can come out of school, and if they go work for a multi-doctor practice, they can make a decent living with it. But the entrepreneurial aspect of chiropractic is diminishing. And that was a big part of when I started practice, that you were your own boss, that you were your chief cook and bottle washer, and you felt entrepreneurial, and you worked to build your practice and make it successful from all aspects. And now it's turning into a good job.
Well, according to the study, they anticipate more opportunities in hospitals and interdisciplinary settings. But that's an anticipation. That's not a reality
And
yet.
the bottom line is those circumstances generally create the work environment is a salary of some type. Yeah, you may get bonuses here and there, but I mean, they're going to pay you. So it fits the generations that are coming, up or the up and coming generations, I should say, where there is less entrepreneurial spirit and more security spirit. So to be able to work for somebody and you know what you're going to get, you know what your pay is, and you can work towards some bonuses, but for the most part, it's secure and it's predictable. And that fits what we see going on out there a lot.
What's interesting too is under the technology section, I was expecting a lot more comment on AI, but there wasn't a ton. It really just said that, the advent of AI will create challenges and improvements in diagnosis, therapeutics, and clinical outcomes. Well,
the good thing of that
no
is
kidding.
we know the report wasn't generated by AI then.
Right. It might have been written, but not generated. I don't know. But I thought that was interesting because when we just talked about this huge gap in chiropractors that we anticipate through this report, AI might be filling a lot of that gap, just like in a lot of sectors.
Exactly. Exactly. It'll be interesting 5 years from now when they repeat this study, the impact AI has on all of these statistics.
AI will do the study. It will be fine.
Yes.
Nothing to see here.
Yeah. I'll be back. Yeah.
So what was also curious about sort of the breakdown and the types of settings, even though sole proprietors still dominate the chiropractic profession, they anticipate, in another 10 years that associateships will really come really close to neck and neck with sole proprietors, but business partnerships coming up too. So I thought that was
a lot more growth in non-chiropractic owned chiropractic businesses. And that's what I kind of piggybacks off what we just said, that there will be more job opportunities for chiropractors as the future progresses on. But there won't be as many solo practitioners and solo offices where, again, back in the day, that was the most common scenario, was we all had our own offices. And what you're going to see now is a lot of, we'll say, corporate influence to the chiropractic profession. And we've seen it. We all know it. It's out there. And that's just going to keep increasing. But with it will be the job opportunities too. So,
well, and pivoting from that, we talked about this in our chiropractic and politics episode. The study shows that there's an anticipation that chiropractic leaders and influencers will continue to take a prominent role.
You mean like us?
I think maybe younger people, younger than us, definitely younger than you, but yes, younger than us. But as chiropractic education and service, becomes more and more integrated, awareness, things like that, that the study anticipates that there will be an improvement to policies, regulations as these leaders emerge, which is interesting and hopeful for sure, that in more positive relationships and collaborations with other healthcare practitioners. Again, sounds great.
Yeah. Well, here's some other facts that kind of won't shock you or may shock you, who knows, but we're still a male-dominated profession. That kind of shocked me because, it seems like there's way more female practitioners out there than I have ever remembered seeing, but it's still about 70% male-dominant profession right now, But let's get down to, the nitty-gritty, right? Because this one did kind of shock me, the next two groupings, in a sense. The income of chiropractors. If you look at 14% make less than $50,000 a year, and I'm assuming those are mostly part-timers, hopefully, right? 39% make $50,000 to $150,000. So the bulk of us are fitting in that category, right? Another 28% make $150,000 to $250,000 a year, and this is reportable income. And 20% are greater than $250,000 a year. So that's a pretty nice spread, I believe, still. It was a little surprising to me because, honestly, sometimes you wonder if it's getting less and less, but that is a nice little spread of the practitioners, and probably not a lot different than it's been right along. Those that are more aggressive or, say, entrepreneurial will make more, and those that are looking for a steady fixed income type of job will have the lower incomes. But for the most part, that wasn't totally shocking to me. What about you?
It wasn't shocking, but it wasn't good, I don't think. To be honest with you, I looked up the medical doctor statistic just for comparison. And I have to say, you had to move over 3 or 4 graph bars before you got to the same sort of spread. So
there were more commas in their numbers for sure, but
yes. And so to me, it really showed that chiropractors are not paid enough. They're not reimbursed enough for the education and the commitment that they make. It was, I guess it was encouraging in the sense that there were more hitting the 6 figures than not. But in today's day and age, that isn't really too much to tout for. What I thought was interesting is they broke down the median income by state.
Yes.
And I have to say, Michigan is hitting it out of the park.
Right. It's off the chart.
It is literally Michigan. I don't know what's going on in Michigan, but we got to head over there and see what's happening. We were just in Detroit. I didn't notice it. But
the best kept secret in chiropractic seems to be Michigan and New Jersey.
And then surprisingly, Alabama was third. In the median income. And to me, Alabama would be the place to be because I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, that Alabama's cost of living might be a little less than some of these other states, like in New England.
It's the big migration state of the country right now is Alabama and Tennessee. So everybody's moving to Alabama and Tennessee.
Well, and as protective as Florida is about their licenses, they weren't really smashing it out of the park, unfortunately. So,
but I was surprised at some of the lower ones, like South Carolina, Utah, and Vermont were the lowest.
Well, very rural in Vermont, so you got to travel
think that
far.
There's a lot of the mindset in Vermont would be very supportive of chiropractic, so you think population would use it.
But again, they're just using dollar figures versus cost of living ratios.
Yeah, they probably charge $4.
You know what I mean? Like they can make less but live better because the cost of living might be a lot different there.
But let's translate that into numbers about patient volume. Because again, everybody, I believe, focuses way too much on patient volume when they really should be focusing on income, because it doesn't matter how many people you see if you're not making a living, correct? So, but it looks like 61% of chiropractors see less than 100 visits a week. That's a dramatic decrease from the previous study of NBCE 5 years ago and from the study 5 years before that. There was a time where the average chiropractor saw about 120, 128 a week. Now we have 61% of the profession seeing less than 100 a week. Now, given the reimbursement rates, that will easily translate into the lower incomes that we were just mentioning. 21% will see 100 to 150, and 18% see greater than 150 a week. So if you look at your practice and you say, okay, why am I not making a good enough living? You might be able to say, okay, I'm not seeing enough people, and I'm not getting reimbursed well enough. I mean, there's 1,000 reasons why your income isn't what it should be. But in this day and age, seeing less than 100 a week is probably a bit of a struggle, depending upon the state you're living in.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it just shows that it has to continue to be a volume game because of the reimbursement mostly. I mean, there's self-pay out there too, but
it's interesting. You say volume game, and I agree with you, but they said that the 40% of the chiropractors work 30 to 39 hours a week, and that includes documentation time. So 30 to 39 hours a week. And if you're one of those people that's seeing less than 100, you're putting in a full-time job. And then you say volume. All right, I need to see more people. Does that mean I have to work more hours? Or one of our future podcasts might be on how to generate new patients, but then how to be efficient about it and how to have patient flow. These things all matter now, like they used to. We used to always be conscious of flow and patient volume and reimbursement rates. And then we had that little period of time where everybody was fat, dumb, and happy. Everything was good.
Well, but within those numbers you just mentioned, the ones that are doing, 30, 39, the average is 37 hours. More than 30% of that is documentation.
Yeah. And that's up 5% from the study 5 years ago. It used to be 24 to 25% of your time was document.
But here's where I think some of the bleeding happens relative to lost income. Mm-hmm. Only 7 hours on business management, personnel, and marketing.
Right. And there's that, going back to the concept we just said, the entrepreneurial spirit is diminishing. And at a time where you need that entrepreneurial spirit more than ever, it's lessening. So we have to kind of look at these numbers and say, okay, this supports what we see, and it also supports the direction that we should all be going. We should be thinking about increasing our volumes, but doing it in a way that's obviously clinically, that demonstrates clinical excellence, of course, and try and find other ways like AR in the future. Not quite there yet, but AR in the future for documentation and things like that. Start really thinking about what it is we're offering our people and how we get reimbursed for those services.
I don't think it was a surprise that less than half provide diagnostic imaging in their office today.
Oh, I know. And this is a sore spot to me personally, because I'm a big fan of having X-ray in your office, and especially now with the advent of digital radiography. We did a podcast on this, so we won't belabor the point, but 41% of the practices in this country have X-ray. And when it comes to making people know what it is you're doing, you will know better what you're doing and how to make people understand chiropractic and what it can really do for them, which would increase your volume, which would increase your practices, which would increase your income. So it all kind of links together. These numbers all fit.
I wish they'd broken this out a little bit more, because when they looked at the reimbursement categories, they said 78% of reimbursement for services came from private pay and private health insurance.
Yeah, that doesn't help much.
The majority was through private pay / cash payments, 41%, and then private insurance, Medicare and PI came in towards the end. So I'm reading this as 41% was self-pay, but I wonder within the self-pay or cash, is it they maxed out their insurance? The allowable was less than the copay. Yeah. There's a lot in there that it's hard to know. And I know in a study this large, it's hard to dig in that much. Yeah.
But that was an old statistical model that used to be used, and I don't know if it's used here, but doctors used to say, oh, I'm mostly self-pay or cash. But what they meant was that they have the insurance, they use the insurance till it runs out, and then they convert them to cash, which isn't the same as somebody coming into your office with no insurance at all and just self-pay from day one. So, yeah, I agree that number doesn't give us all the information that we would like to see. But
were you surprised at the age breakdown? The age breakdown.
Yeah.
4% of chiropractic, usage was by 5 years or younger. So, the little ones aren't getting the care.
Because we're not doing what I keep saying over and over again, is educating your patients about the benefits of chiropractic. And that starts from day one. Chiropractic is a day one service that helps people become healthier, stronger, better in all ways, shape, or form. No, it's not the panacea of every ailment in the world. Of course not. But it is one of the things that we need to do, like food and water and exercise and sleep. All these things are important. And a sound nervous system is another one that's critical.
Yeah, but I'm going to push back a little bit on that to say that it's one thing to educate the mom or the dad or the parent, but when you have a pediatrician directing them away from chiropractic, let's say, it's hard for them to challenge
and it's
that.
Always been there. That's nothing new. And that's the challenge of educating your patients, because you're not trying to educate a pediatrician. They have spent their whole life being indoctrinated in a different way. So don't even bother. Just educate your patients and make them see the benefits of chiropractic.
I think when you look at this graph, I think you see where we're going here. Those that say they don't want to work a lot with like geriatrics or older people, look out, because right now, 20% of the patients by age are 65 or older. 44% are between 31 and 64, but that 44% is aging. And so the majority, if you add up the majority there, that's 64% of the patient base is between 31 and older. And we're not getting any younger.
Tell me about it. Right. So one last little statistic that we can throw out there before we close. But when it comes to the technique aspect of what we do, it said 6% are instrument assist only, which was a little surprising to me. I thought there would be more. 87% use both manual and instrument, and only 7% use manual only. So again, here we talk about all the differences in chiropractic that create confusion in the world. This is certainly something that contributes to that, because you can't go to two chiropractors and get exactly the same thing. But I think if I were to walk away from something with this whole study, is that it's telling us that we need to become more aggressive in our making patients aware of chiropractic and what chiropractic is. If we fall into that symptom-based pain relief model only, these statistics are only going to keep going down in a negative. All the statistics will be more negative in the next 5-year period, because there's a definite pattern here. And the pattern here is that we are not educating our patients. We are not making them understand chiropractic. We're not getting them to participate in the level that they should be participating in. And we need to go back to the days where we just pushed chiropractic into people's lifestyle and make it become something they do along with all the other good stuff.
Well said. Well, thank you to the National Board of Chiropractic Examiners for undertaking this every 5 years for the practice analysis of chiropractic, and all the stakeholders. There's a lot more to this study than we could ever get into in our short episodes. So we'll put that link on the allthingschiropractic.com website. Feedback, would love it. You can place feedback there as well.
Yeah, well worth reading, for sure.
So thank you again for joining us for another episode of All Things Chiropractic. I'm Paul Andrews.
I'm Dr. Mark Davini. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to All Things Chiropractic. We'd love to hear from you. Visit allthingschiropractic.com with comments, episode ideas, or questions. Or connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at All Things Chiropractic Podcast. Be sure to join Dr. Mark Davini and Paul Andrews next time for another episode of All Things Chiropractic.